I talk to parents a lot and say, know what's going on with your school, know what your freedoms are, and kindly educate those around you.
Charles Francis Potter was a secular humanist leader from many, many years ago, and he gloated the following, and I'll paraphrase it. He said, "What can Christian Sunday schools do? They have the children for 1 hour a week. We have them all the rest of the time. We have them 40 hours a week. We will win against Christianity." But what if children could hear the truth of the Bible during the public school day? What if that truth didn't just shape young hearts, but also reached families to bring about transformed communities? Well, in our culture, the confusion's loud and the truth often feels a long way away. But there's a ministry that is legally and creatively stepping into the gap. And the conversation we're going to have today explores how ordinary people are helping children know God's love right where they are, and why it might be one of the most urgent missions of our time to reach children who would never otherwise hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. My guest today is Kori Pennypacker. Kori has over 20 years of experience in children's ministry and leadership, and she is the CEO of Bible2School. She speaks to businesses, churches, community leaders on the importance of spiritual training for children. She's been a guest on Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk, Moms in Prayer podcast. She's currently the host of Bible2School's podcast, which is called You Can Tell the Children, and a monthly contributor to the Washington Times column Higher Ground. Let's welcome Kori Pennypacker to the Truth Changes Everything podcast. Kori, welcome to the Truth Changes Everything podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
So our conversation is going to be about public school kids being reached with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And this is happening through your ministry. There are other ministries that are out there right now doing something similar, going back to a law that's been in place for a very long time, which actually allows us to talk to public school children about the gospel of Jesus Christ during the public school day.
Yes, not before school, not after school, but during school. Isn't that interesting?
During school, yes. Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And your ministry is called Bible2School. I mentioned that in the introduction. But before we get into it, can you share a little of your story of what led you into this kind of a unique ministry that's so critical for our cultural moment?
Yeah, I was first of all, I was a Navy wife and I had kids and 3 boys, and they all went through public school. And I ended up being a children's ministry director at our local church. And it was a great run. I loved it. The kids came to us, and we had a good time with that, giving them the gospel. But then I ended up leaving that because my husband was traveling, and my friend said, come see this. You got to see this. And I went and visited a Bible2School program, and it just blew me away. I'm like, the kids come to you. I used to have to wait for them to come to me at church, whereas we can actually be the church that goes to the kids. And so that's how I got involved. I started volunteering. And they're going to the kids wherever they are is really what we need to do now in this postmodern society. And I had a little boy named Gabriel that hooked me in. Jeff, I got to tell you about him. He was a blonde, curly-haired little boy, blue-eyed, and he actually, during our large group, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but during our program, he accepted Christ as his Savior. And then he came barreling back to my small group. And I said, Gabriel, wow, you accepted Christ as your Savior. And he said, yes, I did. And then he said something that I will never forget. I get choked up every time I say it. He said, I've always wanted to know how to get to heaven, but no one's ever told me. So that's how I got involved. I couldn't not tell children right down the street from us in my community about Jesus.
Wow. I know among conservatives and in the Christian community, there's a lot of controversy about public schools. A lot of people say we just need to get our kids out of there. We should have competitive choice. There should be other kinds of schools. But I want to emphasize that the ministry that you're doing here is not to Christian families who are choosing to keep their children in the public schools by and large. 60% of the students you're reaching have never gone to church at all. Do I have that about right?
Yeah, it's between 50 and 60% every year, faithfully, every year. Yes, you're right about that.
Okay, well then let's dig into that a little bit. If they have never regularly attended church or never even been to a church, how do you introduce the gospel to them? It almost seems like an unreached people group.
It is. We call it the public school mission field that people aren't even aware of. The best kept secret is that you can go into this mission field and the kids, like I said, they're not hearing about God. It's not in our culture anywhere. I mean, there used to be a little house in the prairie where they had churches and people went to church, but it's not anywhere. So kids say to us, Jeff, they say, who's God? I've never heard of him. That happens almost every week at Bible2School because new kids come in every week and they don't know anything about God. In fact, they think Jesus is a swear word. So we just intentionally meet them down at their level and assume they know nothing. And our curriculum is built that way.
So how do you start? Do you just say there's God and this is what he's like? Or
we start with the Bible being God's word. We say this is God's word. And, I have said to this in my small group, I'm like, you get, the kids are like, you get a text from your mom and, and did you read it? And they're like, well, yeah, we read a text message from our mom. I said, well, this is a text message from God. And it's to tell you about him. And his word is true. And you can live your life according to this book because it's from God. And things in it have become true. And it's biblical accounts. They're not stories. They're actual people. And so what we do is second, third, fourth, fifth graders, and soon to be sixth graders, so all that elementary level, we teach them, first of all, the Old Testament, that the Bible is true. And then we teach them how it is in the New Testament. And we teach them about discipleship. And then we teach them about actually how to lay the foundation of their faith, how they're people in the heroes of the Bible, if you would, how they live their faith and how we can emulate that. So it's a very hands-on, right at their level. We don't call sin. We say, we can be bad choices because people say, well, do you sin? I don't sin. Well, do you make bad choices? So we really explain that Christianese to them. And it really is something that we just don't assume they know anything about God. We start from the very beginning.
Wow. Yeah, I was just thinking of a book by Don Richardson talking about going to a tribe of people who they'd essentially never heard of anything related to even Western civilization, not to mention knowing anything about God or Jesus. And to think that that's where we are in our culture at this particular moment, we aren't dealing with a generation of young adults who have some sense that there was a Christian foundation that has been lost. They have never lived in a society where there seemed to have been a Christian foundation.
No, in fact, our program is off-site, and that has to be because of the law. So it's release time is what we use. It's a federal court ruling from back in the early 1900s. They took the Bible used to be a reader in school, and they took it out. And when they took it out, very very smart politicians, believe it or not, you did this release time federal court ruling so that you can take children off-site. You have to have parental permission, and no tax dollars can be used. So it has to be privately funded. And you can, in all 50 states, do this, have the ability to do this. And so it is really something that the founding fathers thought was very, very important. And they understood this is important for a free civilization, for children to know about God. What they do with that and how they choose it, but they need the information. They need to know it.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk about release time for a minute because I know there are some people probably watching or listening thinking this can't possibly be legal. You can't possibly take kids out of school. But you mentioned that there is actually there are Supreme Court cases that document this, that what you're doing is not shady. This is not something that depends on the goodwill of a friendly superintendent who kind of winks and nods and lets you take the kids out for an hour. This is the law of the land.
Yeah.
That these children must be permitted to leave school for this period of time to study their faith.
Yes. Yeah. It is interesting because people don't know anything about this. And every time I talk about this, and we've been doing this, our organization, Bible2School, has been doing this for over 45 years. So, and there's some organizations out there that have been doing it 80 years. So it's not something new. And in 1952, it was challenged, because people often ask me, was this ever challenged? In 1952, it was challenged, and the Supreme Court upheld it, Zorich versus Clausen. And it is definitely something you can stand on. It's free speech, it's freedom of religion, and it's any religion. So it's not just Christian programs. It can be Muslim, it can be Jewish. So it is freedom of religion. And it just needs to be done off-site, parental permission, no tax dollars. Now, each state could have a little caveat to it. In Pennsylvania, it has to be up to 36 hours a year. In Ohio and different other states, it's the school boards have to okay it, that it comes in. So it is definitely, you have to really know what the law says. And I talk to parents a lot and say, know what's going on with your school, know what your freedoms are, and kindly educate those around you, because people don't know about this, Jeff. And I'm excited I'm on your show that I can share with your listeners.
Yeah, for 45 years or 80 years, that's incredible that these have been going on. I think, where we live out west, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, a lot of these laws were really taken advantage of by people from the LDS, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mm-hmm. For those children to be able to get out of school, to have religious instruction. But when Christian organizations realized, we could do this as well, then it's more just, who is going to step up in each of these individual school districts and help to make this happen? Because it is, there eventually somebody's going to figure out that this is possible to do. And if it's, people who love Jesus who are reaching these children first, this is a huge, huge mission field.
Well, there's a huge fear factor here, Jeff. It is, separation, the big separation of church and state, which we know is not even in the Constitution. And a lot of people don't know that. And it was actually a letter from Thomas Jefferson to Danbury Baptist Church pastors, and it just had that in the letter because he was defining that the state can't establish a church. So it was not. Had nothing to do with you're not allowed to bring your faith into a public square or a public school. So it's very misguided. It makes people timid and fearful and. But they're excited once they find out. And a lot of people also ask me what does the school say? And what does the school do? And do you get pushback? And honestly, they don't know what to do because they don't know, they're like, whoa, is this like you? Is this for real? And so we help those who want to have this in their school districts. We have a principals packet. We have all the information. We have a letter from a lawyer saying this is what your rights are. And we help people stay in their legal lane and say, because you can't have any tax dollars, right? So some very zealous school secretaries say, we'll just copy all the registrations on our copy machine. Well, that's tax dollars. So that's against the law. So we have to tell them, well, no, don't do that. It's okay. And so we really, all the way around, we keep everybody in their legal lane. And then children can hear about the Word of God in the middle of the week, in the middle of their school day. So it's amazing.
Everybody's talking about Gen Z and what's going to happen with Gen Z. Wouldn't it be interesting if Gen Z researchers actually put together a report about their own generation, what they are thinking, how they think, how social media affects them, and how to reach them with the truth? Well, that's what we did this summer. Along with two Gen Z researchers, we put together the State of the Rising Generation. Now, I put mine in a little binder. I'm going to tell you in a second how to download your copy for free. But in the State of the Rising Generation report, you're going to learn what is happening with Gen Z, the influence of even things like AI. You have no idea how AI is changing the way those in the rising generation think, and then what it will take to reach them with the truth. All you have to do to get a copy of this for free is go to summit.org/risinggenreport. Summit.org/risinggenreport. Download it. Share it with your friends, share it with all the teachers you know, the pastors you know, and the parents you know, because it's critical that we make these connections with the rising generation to reach them with biblical truth. There are a couple of different directions I want to go with the conversation, but let's just first emphasize how important this particular developmental window is, reaching children at this age. Why is it so important right now when they are, say, in elementary or even into their middle school years?
Well, good question. That is when children's brains actually develop their morals and values. They're clay. It can be molded. I always tell pastors, I'm like, man, you guys have it tough. After 14 years old, their morals and values are set, and you got to change their mind. So, this 4 years old to 14 window, the Barna Group had coined that once a while ago. It's elementary school. And that's why we are like, well, there's hardly anything out there for elementary school. There's middle school and high school and wonderful organizations. But man, we want to get the tools into the hands of the communities to be able to get that truth in there. Because kids are being exposed to, in public school, to a religion. And it's called secular humanism. And it is, if you've ever heard, science decides what truth is. That's humans, that's scientists. And so it's not based on God at all. And so kids are getting through the lens of that in public school. And we at Bible2School want to get truth to them. And this release time, how important it is from 4 to 14, like we were with your question, it's really important to know truth. And to be able to navigate the world when you have truth. If you know something, how do you know something's counterfeit? The age-old adage, and it's a counterfeit bill. How do they know? Well, they study the real thing. That's how you can tell what's counterfeit. And it's the same thing with the Bible and with life. The kids can recognize false things when they study the truth.
Mm-hmm. How do you let children know that this is an option for them?
We actually have lots of discussions with our members of Bible2School, the communities that do this, that we teach and help do this, on marketing, on getting it in their PTO, getting their registration forms home within the school policies. Either they put them in their backpacks or they they come and get them at the office, whatever the school's policy is for Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or all that. It has to be equal access. That's the equal access law. And so we try to get that out. We actually have yard signs. We have emails that we send out. So there's all kinds of ways to get parents to know. But social media, believe it or not, is probably the best way to get it out there. And we train people how to do all that, what's best for their community.
Do children invite their peers?
That's the best way. That is the best way. The most effective way to get children to grow classrooms, fill in classrooms with kids, is they invite their kids. So we have things like a printed invitation that looks like a birthday invitation. And if you can hand out birthday invitations at school, you can hand out these as well. So people don't know that. They think, oh, well, you can't hand out any invitations. Yeah, you can. It falls under free speech, freedom of religion.
Wow. Well, that's one direction I wanted to go, just because I'm just curious as to what it looks like on a daily basis. But you're equipping volunteers to do this work. So they're walking alongside children spiritually during the day, during the public school day. Talk about what it was is needed for somebody to be a volunteer?
A volunteer gives of their time once a week, about 2 hours of their time, half an hour to set up, half an hour to tear down, and an hour with the children. And we, background check them. They have to align with our statement of faith, all those good safety things. But honestly, the reason that we talk to the volunteers, they want to get on the front lines. They want to see lives change, and that's what happens at these programs. Deuteronomy 6, these Israelites lived as slaves for 400 years, and so they came out of the desert like, we don't know how to live. And so you get the 10 Commandments, and the very next thing God said through Moses is, impress this upon your children. Teach them when they're walking on the road, when they're lying down, when they're getting up, when they're in public school, when they're during their school day. So we really believe that's our verse for Bible school is Deuteronomy 6 is why we do what we do, and we want our kids to live their faith all the way through the school week. We're not just at home and then check it at the door. We have a young man. His name is Colson. He came through Bible2School. And he was just on fire. He was on a field trip, and he led his friend on the bus to Christ, and we teach kids how to do that as well. And he was just loving it. And I caught up with Colson when he was in middle school later on, after he left our Bible2School elementary program. And he said that he really didn't understand that he thought church was church and school was school, and you didn't put the two together. And he ended up starting a Bible study in his middle school. He had a worship time. They had the verse. They prayed, and he grew that to it just overflowing. And then he went to I caught up with a couple years later. He went to high school, did the same thing, handed off the middle school one to his brother, and his brother's running it, and he's running the high school one. I mean, these kids, they want to be involved. They see the adults doing it. They see the adults investing in them. And this is Deuteronomy 6. Impress it upon your children. Talk about it all the time.
So if somebody's listening to this thinking, I want to be a volunteer for something like this, I could give 2 hours a week. And I know schools are asking for this all of the time. They want grandmas and grandpas to come in and read to kids. But this is an option for people who want to volunteer a little bit of their time. How would they go about doing that?
Well, they would go to our website at Bible2School.com. That's Bible, the number 2, school.com. And they could check out our map and see if they have a program near their area. If they don't, they can talk to us about us helping them to start a program in their school district. But that's what they do, that we end up having leaders in those schools that in those areas that will talk to them, and they'll get background checked, and they'll come and they'll be trained. But it's very easy. Our curriculum is extremely easy to use. We have large group, small group, and there's a large group teacher that teaches for about 20 minutes, say the story of Jonah, and it's very hands-on. There's actually a big whale that they blow up, and they go inside the belly of the whale, the whole school, or the whole class, I should say, and then they come out with a small group leader and the think about it question for the day, and it's patterned off of the school essential question, but it's a think about it question of the day, and it's how does God give second chances? And so this small group is where it's at. Those small group leaders, you get a table of 6 kids, and they talk about that. And they actually, for Jonah, they have, like I tell you, it's very hands-on, very VBS-like, and they have a bucket of cold water, ice water, because Jonah was thrown into cold water. And you put your hand in, and you see how long you keep it in. And man, if you're a second or third grade boy, which you were at one time, Jeff, you probably would love this. I mean, you put your hand in, oh man, it's so cold, and you time it. And then you give them a blubber glove. It's disgusting. It's a double rubber glove with Crisco lard in the middle. And you put your hand in, and they can keep their head in longer. And they're like, oh, wow, God gave Jonah a second chance. And then we talk to them about, how does God give you second chances? And we go right into the gospel of how Jesus died on the cross. So it is so exciting to be able to do that our curriculum is so well written and so down to earth on their level, hands-on, on their age appropriateness, that the kids can just say, wow, I get this. And we have so many stories that they do. So that the volunteers can come along board and get trained on it and participate pretty fast.
Yeah. Now, if somebody wants to start one of these in a school, I'm sure if the school officials have never heard of it, their instinctive reaction will be, this is illegal. If I permit this to happen, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble.
Yes, that happens. And we also have being part of Bible2School, I should say. Being part of Bible2School, you end up having Alliance Defending Freedom as one of our partners. So we are very versed in what schools and can and cannot do, what parents can and cannot do. So we have people become, it's called a Bible2School member, and we equip them with a toolbox, a website, we teach them how to recruit volunteers. We teach them how to invite people to fund the program. We help give them a budget. We have how to talk to principals, and we have that principal packet for them. So all through the process, we are stepping through them every step of the way, and we help them to build. Most importantly, we help them to build a team around them. Because ministry is a team sport. I know you know that at Truth Changes Everything.
That's right.
And so that's what we do, and then we have live coaching. I wish I had live coaching when I started this, but we are doing it for others because we know how important that is. So that's how people get it in their schools and can talk to and kindly educate. We call it kindly educate educators, because 9 times out of 10 they just don't know. And I know there's bad actors out there, but we have found, and we're in 4 different states right now, we have found that people are like, oh, you can do this. And okay, if you're in a legal lane, whether they're Christian or not Christian, it doesn't matter. Those teachers in the public school system, they want the best for those kids, and the parents want it. So they're signing, it's voluntary, they're signing the dotted line, and those are the constituents of the principal. So the principal is going to want to uphold their wishes and have Bible2School in their offered at their school.
Yeah. Our show, Truth Changes Everything, is sponsored by Summit Ministries. So I have the privilege of being the president of that ministry, of Summit Ministries, and we work with young adults who are 16 to 22 years of age, who are always asking, what can I do when I get home to make a difference? Are those volunteer positions open to young adults like that as well?
It's funny you asked this question. I just heard it today that there are Bible2School kids in Western Pennsylvania who went through the program, became high schoolers, and said, can we go back and serve? So yes, there are ways for them to do that. Yeah, just get in touch with your local program or get in touch with us, and we will definitely figure out how to plug you in. There's a place for everybody.
Yeah. Well, there is a public elementary school probably every 8 to 10 blocks everywhere in the United States of America. Rural areas, it might be a few miles away, but it's probably right there in your own neighborhood. And this is an opportunity to minister to the kids who are right there. I'd love to hear you've given a couple of stories, but what are some of the ripple effects that you're seeing now that you've got this ministry and there are 4 different states over the course of a few decades?
Well, one of my favorite ones is a little girl who came to Bible2School. And I told you it's hands-on. So we have science experiments, we act out Bible stories, all that kind of stuff. So we don't have notebooks. So she brought her notebook and she's writing. And she's writing, and she went to large group and he went to small group. And a small group leader finally said to her, what are you doing? And she said, my dad wants to know about God, and I want to be able to tell him. So that's what I love, that this kind of ripples into the family. we also had another little boy who came home and he said, my friends call me the walking Bible. And and his mom was like, why do they call you the walking Bible? He said, well, I leave my Bible school Bible in my desk so that I can answer any questions anybody has. And they were talking about evolution. And he went and they're all talking about it and they believe in it. And some of the kids were Christian kids. And they're like, yeah, we think this is probably possible. And he said, come with me. And he went and he got his Bible out. And he said, Genesis, in the beginning, and he went through it with them and said, God made the heavens and the earth. He says, you don't get any clearer than that. It's right there. And I just think to myself, this is the truth spreading through children, through adults that give up their me time 2 hours a week. It is a huge impact on the family. I had a little boy named Johnny. His mother told me this story in tears. She had been at her kitchen sink washing dishes, looking out the window. The whole family was struggling. She's really upset. She says, God, help me. And at that very moment, Johnny came up behind her and said, Mom, we need to go to church. We need Jesus. And he had been going to Bible school, hearing about God, wanting to go to church, and he finally got the courage up enough to tell his mom it was the exact same time that she needed it. They started going to church. Most of the family got saved, and she said it just impacted my life. Now, it wasn't Bible school, it was the opportunity to hear about Jesus. It was the Holy Spirit doing this. And we just are so privileged to be able to do this, to help communities do this. And so we're just really excited how it ripples out into the family. And as you know as well as I do, healthy individuals, strong faith believers, individuals, and make strong families and make strong communities and make a strong nation. So that's what we want to change the nation, one child at a time.
Well, what you're talking about, as we've already discussed, is legal. It's legal in all 50 states. It's possible for you if you're watching or listening to this, to get involved if this is what you sense God calling you to do, a couple of hours a week of your time to have an impact on those in the rising generation. And it is right now in this particular program's in 4 different states. I think there are other programs that are similar to Bible2School that are operating as well, maybe in other states. So, this is absolutely worth checking out. This may be as close as many people who are watching or listening to this show will ever get to a mission field. You don't have to get on an airplane. These kids are just a few blocks from your house right now.
Right. And our 10-year vision is for Bible2School, at least one, to be in all 50 states. So if you want to talk to us, we would love to talk to you and equip the hands and feet of the church.
Kori, thank you so much. I appreciate your boldness in doing this. And I'm really glad that you shifted from a ministry of inviting people to church to taking church to people. That sounds like Jesus. I love it.
Well, there's a lot of Jesus that goes on with this, Jeff.
Yeah.
I know with your ministry as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Kori. Thank you to my guest, Kori Pennypacker, for coming on the show. You can go to Bible2School.com to find out how you can use these resources in your own community. Well, this podcast is brought to you by Summit Ministries. And with all of these kinds of issues, we're walking alongside the next generation, their mentors, their parents, and leaders to help young adults know God's truth and champion a biblical worldview. So the resources we have available are all found at summit.org. You can use them to inspire the young people in your life, to inform them, help equip them, find answers to their toughest questions. Just summit.org. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.